It's time for JUCO Jam, presented to you by Dream Big Athletics, hosted by Tad Slowick, an exciting new podcast bringing you all the great action from JUCO baseball. Here you'll find weekly updates from around the country, highlighting the teams, players, and coaches who impact the game at the junior college level. Everything you want to learn about JUCO baseball can be found here and on our website at dreambigathletics.com. There you'll find our weekly team rankings, the top player rankings headed into the spring, and all the news of what is happening in the game at the junior college level. On this show, you will have many guests, coaches, players who will give us insight on the day-to-day, behind-the-scenes working of junior college baseball. And now our host, Tad Slowick.
Welcome, baseball fans, to this episode of the JUCO Jam. I'm your host, Tad Slowick. Spent 28 years in professional baseball as a player, coach, scout, and executive, and I have a big-time passion for junior college baseball. On today's episode, we are fortunate to have as our guest Lou Temple. Lou worked in the front office of the Houston Astros for 10-plus years and then became a Hollywood actor. You may have seen him in such shows as The Walking Dead, the movie Unstoppable, and Lone Ranger, as long as a big-time resume of feature films, TV shows, and commercials. So without further ado, we'd like to welcome in our guest today, Lou Temple.
Hey, Tad, thanks for having me. That's quite an introduction, not just for me, but also for the new JUCO Jam that we're taking off with. That's exciting. This is exciting, and I'm happy to be here. You know, I'm always supportive of what you do, and but it goes both ways. You've always been my number one fan, so I have always received encouragement and inspiration from you. You've always been a guy that has inspired me since the day we met. Do you remember that day?
Yeah, and that was a great day, too. Obviously, where we met, the baseball field at Rollins College. We both played at Rollins College down in Winter Park, Florida. A great campus, great place to go to school. And, we were fortunate to play under a great coach, Boyd Coffey. And, just had a great experience there. And it started off that one day you were in your catcher's gear catching a bullpen, and I pulled up in my car, and I'm older than Lou, so I was kind of a seasoned veteran who'd done pretty well at the school already. And I'm also 6'5" and was 225 pounds at the time, and a lot bigger than Lou. And he come up to the car for his introduction, and I said, "Oh, pleasure to meet you, young guy." And all of a sudden I stuck my hand out, and he stuck his hand out. And next thing I know, I look at my hand, and there's a chew in my hand. So this sucker placed a chew in my hand right away, and I'm thinking, what guts this guy has coming up to me as an older guy, a bigger guy too, and slapping the chew in my hand. So, we met kind of in an interesting way, and from then on, we became great friends, and we were actually roommates one year, and, we had a great time down there at Rollins. So it was an interesting introduction.
Yeah, that was, I'm not sure what prompted me to present myself that way. I knew who you were because I had done my homework coming in, and plus your reputation preceded you. You were the ace of the staff. You were one of the better athletes on the team, and you were the alpha male leader of the team. And I knew that I had to plant my flag at least on your hill if I was going to be able to survive here. And if I could cut it with you, I might make the team. And yeah, at 5'10", 150 pounds, I was not very wise doing that. And for those of you who don't know what a chew is, because we've banned all tobacco products in baseball, that's actually tobacco. It's leaf tobacco, like Redman or Levi Garrett, and maybe some of you coaches privately still indulge a little bit. I have quit, but I did that a lot of my life, chewing tobacco. as Tad will recall, as a roommate. But that's one thing that you never did, Tad, was you never.
No, man, I've picked up a lot of vices from being around the game of baseball, but that wasn't one of them. That's
No,
the only vice I didn't pick up.
it's the one thing that you've never had to put down like most of us. But that's how we met at Rollins College, which was a 4-year, first and foremost, a really good baseball program. And it continues to be an excellent baseball program, Division II.
Yeah, they went to the World Series last year.
That's incredible. We're so proud of them. And we played at that time a lot of baseball. So what I'm trying to get at, there wasn't a regulation system that required us to shut it down in the fall. I mean, we played literally probably 100 games a year at Rollins.
Right, at least, if not more.
Yeah.
Boy, they had some good players.
It was always,
especially in the fall, and boy,
amazing to me, because you would play against a junior college team, and 2 years later, those same guys you played against would be going to major league camp as non-roster invitees, and they had become professionals that quickly. And either they knew they had a plan in that mindset, or baseball had a plan for them. It felt like there were a lot of scouts around in fall and spring when we were playing these guys. So a lot of them got seen. We were kind of committed for 3 years. So a guy like yourself wasn't even going to be considered for the draft until after his junior year. And these guys we were playing against in junior college, they could get drafted. Back then there was a January draft. They could get drafted that winter and literally sign and go out and start their careers in the spring. So it was really exciting baseball at the time. But back to you and I at Rollins College, you were, as I said, the ace of the staff, right-handed pitcher, good stuff, dominating stuff, and always the guy that had to win. You didn't get a lot of support, but you won.
I mean, it's great back then. They didn't have as much restrictions, with the polls and everything they have now. I mean, we used to play Florida, Clemson, Ohio State came down to play us. I mean, we played like a D1 schedule except for our conference. So it was, you didn't have much breathing room from day to day with the schedule we had.
It was amazing too, because like you said, because we were based in the state of Florida, we would play the top 3 D1 schools, which were Florida State, University of Florida, and University of Miami. We played them almost every year and played them competitively. I'm sure they were way beyond our recruiting capacity, but somehow, because you played so much baseball, it's a lot like professional baseball. You play every day. You get good at playing the game as opposed to playing, twice a week. And so you could beat anybody on any given day, to be honest, right?
Right. And, I kind of felt bad for some of the northern teams who were real good, but they were coming right out of the gym. And, we had been, we had 10, 12 games under our belt when we played them. And,
it was amazing.
A little advantage.
It was amazing that we would play teams in February that would end up in the College World Series in June. And we might have put it on them pretty good way back in the spring, like a University of Michigan or Maine at that time. Maine had a real powerhouse out of their region. So we used to beat up on them pretty good. But the whole point was too, as great as baseball program, it was just as good as school. We got this amazing education. That being said, we were really focused on baseball. I'm sure it's the same today. If you go to school on a scholarship to play a sport, I think that's probably why you're there. Your studies are important.
Right. Obviously, the educational you'll use longer in your life than your baseball career, no matter how long you play. So.
Yeah. As it says the guy who's still working in baseball.
Working in baseball, right? Messing around in baseball,
What was your major, Tad? Remind me.
yeah, I was a history political science guy, and I actually I am certified to teach in the state of Illinois. So,
Yes, you have
uh,
put and there have been times that you have gone and taught. So you have
right,
applied your education. I'm an economics major, and outside of balancing my checkbook and not very well economically, my day-to-day life, where I would be, I'd be beyond where I am today.
right.
But
Well, that
dude, thanks for having me on this podcast. This is a lot of fun, but also really informative because just the way we're talking about transaction, how baseball was when we played. Junior college is in that place too, and we'll get all into that later. But I think it's incredibly exciting, which is entirely why I recognize
yeah.
a great place to jump into. So.
Well, right. I mean, in junior college baseball is so different now. It's so loaded with talent. I mean, the talent
Wow.
at the junior college level is unbelievable. Is you'll know and find out when you dig deeper into it. But I mean, you used to go when you were working with the Astros. Go out to games out at San Jack and Blinn and Alvin, Wharton, all those schools around
Yeah.
the Houston area, and you saw a lot of junior college baseball, and what kind of quality it is.
Yeah, even back then, they were the first out of the gate. So they were the first games that you'd go see about this time, right at the end of January,
Right,
early February,
right.
and
Next week's opening day.
in the state of Texas. And so you'd use it kind of a springboard to your start of your scouting season, and it was a great gathering, reconnecting with your scouting friends, your associates, your comrades. And then you'd realize, oh, there's actually some players we're supposed to be looking at. And you do these team reports and basically grade out each player on every team. And lo and behold, there'd be some surprises that you either didn't know about or they had progressed.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah, they gotten better from the fall to the spring.
For sure. And that scout that had recognized that was trying to hide them, and pretty soon the word's out. And it was a lot of fun, and it was there was no one like you, Tad, that was putting the word out to the masses. So you could bury a guy or ask the coach maybe.
Right, right. Not to pitch a guy so that he
Yeah,
could get him a little later in the
chance
draft
he
and
can
stuff.
get his arm arrest today, because I know there's a couple supervisors running around, but
Yeah.
very, very cool how junior college has rebounded in baseball. Did you ever consider going to a junior college, Tad, out of when you were?
No, I was and I say it's just like people nowadays too. I mean, I didn't really know much about junior college and what junior college baseball was all about when I was growing up, and I think that I think a lot more people are educated on junior college baseball and how good of programs there are. How good of coaches there are, how good the facilities are now. I mean, it's really just taken off as far as all the things that are available to you at a junior college level. The development process is outstanding, and I really think that we're in they're in a way better place than when I was coming out of high school and stuff. So I really was very uneducated when it came to the junior college game. So
Here's an
that's
interesting
why I was
story for me from junior college. I didn't really understand junior college until my senior year in high school, where I was invited by a coach to come play in his fall schedule for Bellevue Community College. And the coach was a gentleman named Ray Washburn. And Ray had pitched in the major leagues with one of your good friends, who we'll hear from down the road, Scipio Spinks. And Ray pitched for the Cardinals. In fact, Ray one day Gaylord Perry threw a no-hitter versus the Cardinals, and the very next day, Ray threw a no-hitter versus the Giants. And I don't think that's ever been done, back-to-back no-hitters by opposing pitcher teams. But so Ray was the community college coach, and those guys playing community college were so much better than the high school guys I had been facing. I was so overmatched, but I have to say, and you know this, being an athlete, that when you play above your pay grade, you get better. You get better, and I think a lot of
Right, absolutely, the
players,
challenge.
yeah, and so that was certainly something that woke me up when I went over there in the fall. But I recognized too those guys um, were working on something, which was making the team. They were trying to make the cut. And I literally thought I might make this team, and I was still in high school. And I don't know what I was thinking, but the excitement got me going. But
Right.
I think that's interesting because what it did for me was I realized as a high school player, I wasn't that far away, or in my head space, I could play at least at that level. And that was junior college, but to me, it was college. So that totally just said I could go play college ball because, I grounded out against the best pitcher. And so I wish, well, I don't know. I'm sure today, because of all of our select leagues, that these guys really know. After we went through our college years, you got drafted and went out with the Cubs.
Right. Played the
Got a
Cubs
little,
up in upstate New York right away.
yeah, yeah.
New
So
York
for
Penn
whatever
League.
reason, I was playing in a summer league, and I was playing in upstate New York as well. And so you were in the New York Penn League, and I can remember coming over to Geneva to see you, and you were pitching for the Geneva Cubs, who at the time were being managed by a gentleman named Tony Franklin. I'll never forget this because I was hanging out with you,
Yeah, I remember
and
Tony.
we were in the stands, and he wanted to know if I was one of his new players, this little 5'10", 150-pounder. You just signed or something? And I'm like, no, sir. I'm just here as a friend. He goes, oh, thank goodness. uh, so
Yeah.
um, so he was your first manager. We shouldn't go too far when we speak about managers than to speak about our coach. You did a great job introducing Boyd Coffey, who's he's a huge influence on a lot of us baseball people, not just you and I, but Glenn Sherlock, Sean Pender. We'll hear from them later. Brian Meyer, obviously Johnny Castino, Rookie of the Year in the American League, I think in 1982. There's been so many; it's hard to keep up. Played there with Boyd. Yep. So that's Cody Bellinger's dad. Clay's got a World Series ring. So many people,
Yeah.
but the point is that Boyd Coffey wasn't just a coach. He was a father figure for all of us. He was an inspiration because anything that he asked us to do, particularly in conditioning, he could do better, and
Right.
and he knew baseball, and he could teach baseball. He was
Yeah, I
really,
mean, and the one thing I think everybody came out of there with was a great work ethic, because you had to work to be involved in that program. Any less than giving everything that you had was totally unacceptable to him. And, you didn't stay around very long in that program if you didn't, do the work.
yeah. It was interesting because the great thing that you realize now that you didn't realize then was that Boyd set up a system where, as a unit, you policed yourself. As a unit,
Right.
Boyd himself, as the head coach or his assistant coaches, didn't have to discipline very much because we all, and particularly the older players, made sure everybody was doing their job and doing their work. And it was kind of you were hazed or frowned upon if you didn't do your work. And that's when guys didn't cut it, or when they're like, I don't really want these
Right.
other 20 guys getting on my case because I'm not getting my running in, or because I'm not,
And that's one of the things I think is so important. Well, in anything in life, but I mean, in baseball especially, is be accountable for yourself. Don't, rely on other people to, uh, rely on them to guide you, but not relying on you to do the work. I mean, you got to be accountable for yourself. And when you take accountability as a player, I think that's when you grow the most.
It's a great lesson that we learn in sports, what you just said, which is exactly how sports works, and how inspiration works and motivation. When you get out of sports and when you get out of the field of competition, it's more difficult to apply that in life, Tad, what you just said about being accountable, because it's not so much head-to-head competition where you see that you get beat. When you start getting beat in life, you don't see it or understand it as much, so you start pointing the finger and playing the shame blame game as opposed to taking accountability. It's something that I'm learning continually. Hey, why did this happen? Why am I struggling with this? Why is this not happening? And the reality is, not to get all philosophical, but you'll find that's a little bit what I do, is that I am accountable for pretty much and always everything that's happening. It's not someone else's fault. In sports,
Right.
particularly in baseball, you recognize that. You understand when some guy, unloads on your hanging slider and hits it 400 feet over the center field wall. That's on you.
Yeah, I know that feeling. That's for sure.
I mean, we all do. So,
Then the accountability thing just goes into just how baseball is in general, so it's a mirror to life, is that, how you going to react when you get kicked down? How you going to react when things don't go your way, and like you said, you could blame other things and other people, but that's not going to help you move forward. I mean, you got to, dust yourself off and get after it again.
That's what I always liked, or what I like about sports, compared to what I do today, which is almost the opposite. So I like, for lack of a better term, I love the mano drama. There's no, and when I use the term mono, it's a term. Obviously the ladies are playing as well, but so it's competition, you against that other person, and we don't know how it's going to go. We don't know what Rollins is going to do against Florida State today, because they got to play it. But when I go to work, interestingly, it's all false. We know exactly how it's going to play out, because there's a script that says what we're going to follow. And in life, that script, there's just one person that knows it, and he doesn't really let us into it very much. We get to experience it, but the mystery of life.
So it was interesting when we, left school. I mean, I obviously went on to played professional baseball, and then you got into professional baseball too with the Astros, and kind of tell us how that all came about, and kind of your experiences, at your first job out of college, basically, was in baseball.
Yeah. So unlike you, I didn't have a great senior year, and I wasn't a prospect, and I didn't get drafted. And so I was pro ball. My playing days were short-lived.
But I gotta say that the one thing is, you talked about your stature a few times, but Coach Coffee had a great nickname for you, which I think we still call you today once in a while. We call you Scrap Iron.
Yeah.
Even though you weren't as big, you were put together pretty well and strong and wiry.
I played tough, and I went out and played a little bit in a couple semi-pro leagues and an indie league. And then, but what really happened was that through Boyd and his association connected me with a Rollins alumni, Dan O'Brien. And Dan had an opportunity. Dan had an internship, allowed me to go to Houston, Texas, and intern for the Astros in their player development and scouting department. And I took it in an open mind, an open heart, and open hands, and just went in to learn and to be of service. It was baseball. It was professional baseball. When I got there, my mind was blown. It was the Houston Astrodome, the eighth
Right,
wonder of the
right.
world, and it was amazing. And I went to work in an office that was in the Houston Astrodome. That was incredible. And then I got exposed to what the inner workings of a professional baseball team are, particularly in player development and scouting. Working for my first year, working for two men, Dan O'Brien, the scouting director, Bill Wood was the minor league director at that time. And so it was amazing. And I didn't know, because we were players. We were coming off the field. I could hit fungos. I could throw BP. I could catch bullpens. But I didn't know how to file a report. Or I didn't
Right, and that's what's interesting too, for people who are, a lot of our audience out there, are college guys who, if they're when their playing careers over, they look to stay in the game. So I think from that level, I think it's gonna be interesting to them, all the things that you
yeah,
had to go through in your process.
there's so many more options today for what that is. Back in those days, there wasn't necessarily a college degree in sports marketing that launched you into your executive career. So it was a networking system, word of mouth, like how I got in, looking for good people in the game, of which I was, and you were, and still are. And so was just brought in and trained about administrative work, not unlike work that you would do at any company. Whether that's making sure reports are filed, making sure the mail goes out, making sure whatever menial task, which would be administrative, you kind of start at the bottom in the mailroom and work your way up, so to speak.
Paying your dues.
That work ethic that you spoke of, that Boyd instilled in us, more successful from the very get-go, because we had it more than most of the people we were exposed to, whether it was like you on the playing field or me in the front office. We were out working our competition, so to speak, and that gave us a leg up, at least until, I guess, talent catches up with you. And
Right, exactly.
so I did that in the front office and learned so much so quickly, but also proved myself in the fact that I would work hard.
And you had to do pretty much.
That there's a great saying,
Yeah, and you're pretty much doing everything.
the loneliest mile is the extra mile. And the extra mile is lonely because not a lot of people go there. That's after work is done for the day and you're still there plowing through it. Or that's in the morning before everyone gets there and gets their coffee. You're already well into your day. So that's always what I thought about the extra mile. And oftentimes you're there by yourself. And that's why it's the lonely mile. But it pays off. And they recognized that in me and then offered me a full-time job to assist in those two departments.
We're here talking with Lou Temple, former Astros front office personnel and Hollywood actor. And we were just speaking about Lou's work in the front office with the Houston Astros at the Astrodome there, getting involved with the draft as the assistant scouting director and with the player development and movement of people.
Yeah, so I joined the Houston Astros as an intern. Again, Boyd Coffey had set that connection up with Dan O'Brien, who was the scouting director. Dan O'Brien attended Rollins College and played for Boyd Coffey. So there we go, yet again, with the Boyd Coffey connections. As I said, I showed up as an intern, not knowing very much or little of anything about minor league baseball and the front office and scouting, and learned an awful lot really quickly, and was able to show them that I had a great work ethic, that we've talked about that gets you so far in life and continues to. and they offered me a full-time job as the assistant in both departments, minor league and scouting, where I learned entirely the scouting process, filing reports, receiving reports, distributing reports. These are player reports from the scouts in the field, dealing with expense accounts, dealing with cars, company cars, fleet cars, and then, of course, the draft and preparation for the draft. The big draft board, Tad, you remember that. You were a big part of that. And then after we drafted players, traveling them to their first year clubs, one being the Rookie League, one being Auburn, New York, which was in the New York Penn League, which is where you went, up into Geneva. So these were all parts of my responsibilities that were all really important. They were very important, and I took them as very responsibly job, that I had to get done. And so
Right.
it was great. It was fast and furious, and I was learning on the job, but I had so much experience in such a short time, and I learned so much. And it's always best to kind of just get thrown in the fire and do it.
Right, you get pulled in so many directions, and you had so much responsibility per se, and there's a lot of things that get done in a day, and it
Yeah,
wasn't your 8-hour punch to clock days
at
either,
all, at
burning the
all.
midnight oil.
And so I always like to talk about this place that I think is gets you ahead in the game. That's what I call the extra mile, which is the lonely mile, because not a lot of people hang out there. That's an hour in before the workday starts, and that's definitely an hour or two after the end of the workday. And I found I was able to really make strides there, and that's just part of that work ethic that we all know and we have in our DNA that makes us actually who we are. So I learned the Houston Astro way. I learned professional baseball. I learned minor league baseball. I learned scouting immediately, and I had so many mentors and so many incredible people that I got to work with. And then on top of that, would watch Major League Baseball games every night. So every night I'm in the ballpark in Houston when they're at
Right,
home watching games, and
right.
then took it upon myself to go out and learn to scout with the our old scouting group. Our
Guys with a lot of experience.
man, do I have to tell you? And so, lo and behold, that career kept me quite busy for a long time. And one year, we had a player in rehab in Double A, and we needed a pitcher to throw bullpen for us. We needed a relief, a long guy to eat up some innings, and you were available. The Cubs, I think, had just let you go, and I knew you, and I knew your work ethic, and I pitched you hard to our minor league director Fred Nelson, who's like, yeah. Plus, we kind of need an enforcer for Charlie Kerfeld. You were that guy. You were perfect, and that
Yeah,
was your yeah.
yeah. Keeping Charlie in line was almost a full-time job in itself.
It was
So
a great job, and you did a great job with it. You got him back to the big leagues, and but more
yeah,
than
I got
that, you introduced yourself to the Houston Astros and made that same impression about your work ethic and who you are. And so the next job opening that came available, interestingly, was a scouting position in the Midwest, the Chicago upper Midwest area. And Dan O'Brien asked me, what do you think? And I said, I think Tad's perfect for this. And of course, you took that position on for 20 plus years, not just that position, but you escalated into supervisor and ultimately scouting director. And I think we ran you out with a scout named Jack Bloomfield to get you started.
right, definitely. Jack was an ex big leaguer, experienced guy, really understood the game, and ears open when you're around those type of guys.
And so you would be the first to admit that when you're coming off the playing field and you know everything and you just know the routine, and you know players, and you know the game routine, and this guy's lights out, and somebody can turn one around, the game changes. It's really different when you get up in the stands to watch a baseball game for evaluation, isn't it?
Right, and the unfortunate thing I realized when I was up there scouting and went through the scouting process, I understand why I went later in the draft. So that was kind of a sobering experience, also. So,
It's
uh,
very sobering. All of a sudden you realize, wow, I probably didn't grade out as well as, but I think that's important that you don't know about that stuff when we're playing. The
oh,
mystery,
obviously,
yeah, the mystery is what keeps us hungry and keeps us believing in ourselves. And above everything, we have to believe in ourselves. So,
so I had a great experience working with you. You know, we did a lot of things together. We were
man,
friends, even though you know, you had your thing to do, I had my thing to do around the country. But you know, everything's going well for you. Everything's going good, and kind of what kind of changed your mind a little bit, and what was your experience with your thought process after, you know, working in that position for quite a while?
yeah, well, of course, I'm just thinking that I'm being groomed to be. I'm going to be honest. I really, in my mind, said I'm going to be a general manager of this team, the Houston Astros, or some other team. And my peers at the time were like Brian Cashman and Brian Sabian and
Kevin
Danny,
Towers and
yeah, Kevin Towers, Danny Evans. So I felt like I was as good as those guys, and they were great. And I was going to be that guy. But you've known me longer than anybody, and you always knew that I had a little outside of the box type thinking, just a little. I mean, I really like to conform with a team, but there's a part of me that likes the individual too, and
right.
so
And the organization should have realized that when we were at our organizational meetings, because we had the whole organization there, and sure enough, if you didn't get up and entertain us, and it was uncanny how you could imitate our scouts voices, mannerisms, everything. It was hilarious. You had us on the floor all the time. It was someone should have saw that insight and knew that was coming.
I think I really always did, ever since I've been a child, enjoyed entertaining. I enjoy telling a story. I like listening to a story. You and I are similar that way. And I've always felt like that's been a calling for me. And as much as baseball filled my passion and love, I think there was still a void that I wasn't just going to fit in with the old boy system. At that time, that's what it was. Now it's the new boy system with analytics. So it's kind of the same. It's just different, vernacular. But I realized that I might have been searching a little bit. And one day, keep in mind, I've got this good job. I've got a company car, an expense account, salary. I'm living in Houston, Texas, going good.
Working for a major league team.
Yeah, I mean, most people give their right arm to do this, as I would as well. You too. But I followed a young lady into a building to chat her up for a date. It was always about a girl back then, wasn't it, Tad? And so
Right.
I walked into a building, and it was a theater where they were doing stage plays, and I was like, "What?" Ah! And this was the heavens speaking to me, and these were my people, and I needed to do this, and I could do this, and it turns out I couldn't. So I was moonlighting a little bit with this acting thing, and then interestingly, just to keep this story longer, one day I get called by the owner of the baseball team at that time, John McMullen, had asked me to come to the field in the Astrodome in uniform with bats and balls, and I assumed I was going to do a workout. Remember, we used to always have to work out somebody's kid. It's a owner's friend who has a son that's the next Nolan Ryan.
Right.
We'd go through the motions. How many times have you done that? Oh
Oh,
my
tons.
gosh! And so I show up, and it was Charlie Sheen, the actor, Wild Thing from Major League, and he was in town doing a movie in Houston called The Chase, and he needed to work out to prepare for Major League Two, and I was a great workout partner, and we got to be friendly. And he rented the Astrodome every night, and we would work out. I'd catch him in bullpens and throw BP, and it was a blast. He had a birthday party I got invited to, and I went, and there were two executives there who were making a movie for Disney, Angels in the Outfield, and they said, come to our movie, because Charlie's going to ask you to do theirs, but ours is going to be more fun. You'll have more to do. So I took vacation time, Tad, and went. You remember I went to California.
Right, I remember that.
I went over to Oakland and Los Angeles. I never took vacation, so I had a lot stored up. This was in the fall and winter. And during that time, the team was sold. And when I say the team, I mean the Houston Astros. John McMullen sold to Mr. McClain. And Bob Watson, who had been in the organization, took over the team as the general manager. And he gave me a call, Bull, and I'll never forget this. Lou Boy, hey, Lou Boy, how's it going out there? Yeah, hey, look, now you don't have to come on back anytime soon. Enjoy yourself. And I was like, uh-oh. So I did come back, and I went to his office, and we sat down. And then he just explained to me that he thought I had this other calling. And he said, you've got this fire burning and this other thing in acting, and you're pretty good. He saw me in the organizational meetings as well. He said, I think there's something to this, and I'm not firing you, but I'm not rehiring you. And I was pissed. I'm like, that's bullshit. I'm out of a job, and you're saying you're not, why are you firing me? Because if I don't, you'll be a lifer in baseball like the rest of us, of which I certainly would have been. And Tad, you are. And right. So I was mad about that. And so I got a call fairly soon, because I had a good name in the game, from Tom Romanesco, you may remember, that was running at that time the San Diego Padres. And he offered me an opportunity to come to San Diego to assist in both departments. And the Padres weren't very competitive as a team, but who wouldn't want to go to San Diego? It was the best place ever.
Right.
Live there,
beautiful.
Work. Oh my God. And Bob's words were echoing in my head. So I said, I declined that offer to get back into pro baseball. I went up to Brooklyn College and studied a little bit with Stanley Zaroff on acting. I came back down, workshopped, and did community theater until I got a professional job with the Alley Theater. Worked for a moving company, taught lessons in baseball, which back then were just, it was just babysitting players with, we weren't so advanced as we are now.
I know it was different, but I remember seeing you at one of those theaters on the play you were doing, and you were given a dress rehearsal before you guys opened up. And I remember sitting there in the front row, and I'm going, man, he's good. I always thought you had skill, but I saw you in your element, and you were totally comfortable, totally feeling at home, and you did such a great job. And I go, man, this is it. This is for him.
Well, I appreciate that, because there were many times where I wasn't sure, and I'm certainly sure that directors I was working with were like, I don't know if this guy,
Right.
One thing always that somebody always noticed what I was doing, and I always had a way of standing out, and I knew I was different, and I couldn't say as to why, but I knew that I had something, and that something was good enough to keep people engaged for a moment. And so I never doubted that. Let's say I've doubted, will I get opportunities? For sure. But I never doubted that I had a little bit of something. And I started, yeah. And so it's just like in this game, you start to hone your craft. You start to build your skill sets. You start to understand what you do that you do well. I've learned now what I didn't know then was, we were always trying to be all things to all requests, a man for all seasons. The reality is I'd give any young person the advice on anything he does, work on your strengths. Screw your weaknesses. Nobody ever is going to hire you for a weakness. Um,
Right.
if you've got a below average breaking ball, you can work on it. You can improve it. But if your four seamers, getting people out, make it better. No one hires
Right.
me to do a British accent. No one
Right.
hires me to play, a ballet dancer. Those aren't my strengths, and I'm never.
Be who you are.
Yeah, be who you are, which is great. And so clearly, I had this passion that was acting that had sort of taken over for baseball at that time.
You
And
became pretty big in the Houston area. I remember seeing you on the
yeah,
cover of the Houston Chronicle and for your acting, and you did
my
some movies.
my big break-in thing, if you'll remember, was Walker, Texas Ranger
Right,
with
right.
Chuck Norris, and so that was huge for me. Like on national television, on doing a show, uh, it, you know,
And
doing.
I used to always give you hell on that because I used to say you always played the bad guy, and at the end you always got your ass kicked. So,
Yeah, didn't I
so
ever?
maybe a lot of people like to see that. I don't know,
I think that
but
might have been the point. You would always give me grief and say, "Hey, Lou, don't you understand? He's going to come with that roundhouse. He does it
every time.
every time you're on the show, and you fall for it." And I'm like, "Yeah, Tad, it's in the script. That's what I get paid for, is to do what they say." So things were going really starting to pick up, and I was getting work in Texas and quite happy. Um, and life doesn't let you be, and life always gives you opportunities. We think they are obstacles, but they're really opportunities, and we look back at them now as those go. So
You kind of had your success in Houston,
for
and were
sure,
doing
yeah,
very well there, but
I
that wasn't
was.
like the big leagues
I
for
mean,
you.
maybe my first life crisis was that I wasn't going to play in the big leagues. And then all of a sudden I end up in the big leagues working for the Houston Astros. Maybe the next one was the gal that I was dating at the time decided she was done with me in Houston. You remember Rainey,
Yeah,
and that the guys I was working with said you should come to Los Angeles, which I had never really thought about coming there. Tad, I never thought about going to LA. Really, I thought I'd
right.
just work out of Houston, and so I did go to Los Angeles, and that was kind of a big move, very intimidating, and it's all new, and you've got to reestablish. So, like you were just saying, I'm a guy, and I'm doing it in Houston, and now I've got to be a guy trying to do it in Hollywood, which is really, that is the big leagues, dude.
Right. And so you're out there
Yeah,
getting trying to get established and getting some things going, and then you get the rug pulled out from underneath you.
life again throws a big the one of those wake up calls we talked about was the fact that getting let go from the Astros to pursue acting, which at the time seemed awful, but looking back on it, was the path that I needed. Then all of a sudden I'm out here and I'm scuffing along trying to make it happen, and I get sick, right? And the next thing you know, I have been diagnosed with leukemia, and I'm at MD Anderson Hospital fighting for my life. And that was real. And, you know, looking back at it, there were so many people who had to watch me lay there, and for all intent and purpose, I was dying. And I didn't really recognize how hard that was for my caretakers and people that cared for me and loved me, and
Yeah.
people
I
like
mean,
yourself.
I remember coming out being on the road and then coming in to visit you at night. And I mean, people who have had loved ones go through what you did know the experience. It was pretty sad. I mean, I saw you kind of withered down to nothing, And, I honestly thought that you were going to pass. I thought you were going to die. I mean, and
I was, I was
it
gonna
was tough.
die, and it was amazing, just this incredible adventure. Looking back at it now, for you as somebody that really was there, and like you say, you'd be on the road and you'd come through Houston, and I don't know how you got by the nurses station, but I remember you showing up. It seemed like the middle of the night, talking to me, and hold my hand and really caring for me. And I'll never forget those were some of the few times I remember in the 8 months that I was in the hospital, for God's
Yeah.
sake.
Yeah.
And, one of those days, I'm just going to be honest with you, that I was in there dying. It was about this time of the year, February in Houston, and the spring was coming on, and it was quite beautiful outside and sunny, little brisk, but you could feel the warmth. It was baseball season, dude, and it was great.
Right.
But
Spring training.
I was laying in bed, not doing well, and a man dressed in black came in, and there were always people coming in and out of my room, and not always people that I knew. And I did not know this gentleman, and he just came in to make a call. He wasn't a doctor. Bedside, uh, caretaker type person. And he asked me how I was doing. And I just told him, I don't think I'm doing that well, sir. And he said, well, that's what I hear. And how you fix for down the road? And I said, I'm not sure what you mean, sir. And he said, well, for the afterlife. And he said, how you set up? And I said, I don't know. Guess I'm all right. He said, can we pray? And I said, yeah. And he prayed over me. And again, I'll never forget it, but it seemed like the light came in through my room in the middle of that. It was a mid-morning, and it was just incredible, the sunlight that beamed through my room. And I swear I levitated off of the bed, and I was relieved of all the burden of either living or dying. All of a sudden, it didn't matter. It was going to be okay. I was scared to die, but it was going to be okay if I did. That feeling came over me. And I was also afraid to live. and that was okay too. And uh, it's just the weight of of everything was removed from me, and from that moment on, I started to live again. My vitals picked up. My blood results started to show cleaner blood being made. I gained a little bit of weight.
Chemo was working.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. I mean, everything started to fall in this miracle. And as well as I do, I had a lot of care. There were a lot of people looking out for me, and really great doctors.
Absolutely.
But to be honest, without the great physician above. And so that reaffirmed my wandering faith at the time. And I've not left that since.
You got strong that way.
It did, and I'll recognize that, and all the people around me for that, and so that was the blessing in the breaking of the bread, which was me at that point, and I needed
Right.
that. Little did I know, and so we never know that. So
Yeah.
that's another big play in life that it brings you, and so you'd
Yeah,
say,
the Lord had a higher purpose for you.
for sure, and you'd say, well, man, what can you do after that? Well, I don't know. I wanted to go hide, really. I just wanted, I wasn't sure what I'd been through. It was a huge crisis, and I just wanted to go away. But I did come back to Los Angeles, where I'd been living, and continued to pursue acting, lo and behold. And slowly but surely, things started to happen for me.
So what broke things open for you?
I guess because I was not, I had been through something that was bigger than any audition or any film I was going to do or any game I was going to play, or, I had come through the other side of that. So I don't think that I felt as anxious about, I got to get this job or I got to audition well. And so I think maybe there was a certain relax that came over me, and maybe just this super power of knowing that I had a big protector that went before me,
Yeah.
and I had this like superpower, and I just felt like, okay. So then when I started to go into the rooms to audition, it wasn't just me. And that was a great feeling. That was really an important feeling. And so I got um, a casting person, a casting director named Monica Mickelson, who had seen me and cast me in a movie called Serving Sarah. And I got sick and I couldn't do it in Texas. She replaced me uh, because I couldn't do it. And with Mike Judge, the creator of Beavis and Butthead, but she remembered me and she brought me in to read for a horror film. And I'd never done a horror film or seen a horror film that much. You know, we saw Frankenstein and stuff, but uh, this was a movie called The Devil's Rejects by Rob Zombie. And I can remember being in the audition with Steve Zahn and Jeremy Davies, guys that I really looked up to and thought they were great. And I would like to be like them. And lo and behold, I got cast. And that kind of was what turned it around for me. People in Hollywood were like, took notice of, hey, this guy's got something. He really's got something. He belongs here. You know, it just takes one moment. In most instances, Tad, I think that you're the one that has to give yourself permission. It's not some director, producer, casting director, or agent that says, hey, kid, you're good. It's you. And, you know, it's when you come home and say, I'm an actor, and people say, oh, yeah, what restaurant are you working at? And you don't let it bother you because you know you are. It really gets down to you as always, right?
Right. It's same as playing. Your confidence level goes up, and now all of a sudden you can feel it, and you're comfortable, and things are headed in the right direction for you.
Yeah, so that started to feel that way, where I had some confidence and some comfort, and was doing films. Uh, did 21 Grams, which was nominated for an Oscar. It was great, and the Rob Zombie movie turned out really good for me. And then that genre started to look at me, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Rob brought me back and did Halloween. I did a movie for him called 31. So I sort of had this genre specialty, but also I was this guy that didn't get stuck in that genre. So I got to go do movies like Domino. There's this director, Tony Scott, that does action adventure movies that I got to do 3 movies with him. One being Unstoppable, which, you know, probably is my best movie, to be honest.
Yeah, that was a great role, great character.
Yeah, right. And I kind of got to be the hero at the end of the day, driving the truck,
Right.
help get there.
Yeah, not always the bad guy.
And so, yeah, or the guy causing trouble, or knowing
Right.
the guy who does. And I can remember doing Unstoppable. It's so funny. And calling you and saying, hey, Tad, man, I'm not working today, or I was scheduled, but they rescheduled, and all this downtime, and trying to stay in the game and reading the script every day and being focused, going to the gym, listening to music. And you probably had to hear me complain. And it was great. Little did I know that focus that I was trying to maintain was exactly the reason I was so good in that movie, is because
Right.
I didn't let it slip. And focus is everything in all aspects of life, man. If you can just, in short bursts, you know, it's
Right.
it's just that, just to focus on hand on the ball on release, or, you know, picking the ball up from that little space the pitcher releases to
Right.
the plate as a hitter,
Right.
or off the bat. It's a few seconds between action and cut. It's not really that much, but man, you have to have it to have success. It's
Right. And like you had mentioned to me before in our conversations, you had to bring it every day. I mean, it
you
wasn't like you could
yeah,
be like, well, it's a little off today, but no,
yeah,
you had to bring that every day to be on top.
you do have to bring it every day. And so that's an interesting perspective too, because I reason that's the difference between film and television. Today, television, we have streaming and we binge watch so much. So television's kind of king today. But when I started, film was king. Not many people wanted to be on
Right.
television. And the thing with film is it's 100 pages thereabouts, and every word on that page, every word on all those pages is important because you don't get them back. Whereas in television, you do an episode, you could dial it back. It's like a season, 162 games. You have to learn to coast a little bit, right? You
Right.
can't go pedal to the metal for 162. You got to know when to coast and when to throttle up and shift
So
in.
then you did get back into TV after that
I
with
did, right? With The Walking Dead and Axel. Yeah, that
yeah
was so great. We did that down in Atlanta, which interestingly, you had come to visit me. I'm going to find a picture of the two of us because you had come to see me on the movie called Lawless. Do you
yeah
remember?
Lawless
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And you came, Gary Oldman was there, and of course, Tom Hardy and Shia LaBeouf and Jason Clarke and Jessica Chastain, a lot of like gay listers. That
yeah
was
there are
cool.
some big players there, including Lou Temple.
Thank you. Yeah. And so the next time in Atlanta, I was doing The Walking Dead and playing Axel, which at the time, I didn't really realize how visible that was going to be. I didn't realize what a huge show that was becoming and and the gift that it would be and keep on giving because I can go out to these conventions and sign autographs and meet people and it's just really been a incredible journey with that. So that
I
was
remember those shows you guys used to do, the recap shows with them, and after you got finally put away on that show, the guy had a great comment. Lou got shot in the temple.
in the temple. That's right. That was the Talking Dead uh,
Yeah,
that we did that with Chris, and so it was really great and great experience. And that was like really being part of a team, which I've never experienced in the film or television industry, anything like that. That's why that show was so successful because everybody was on the same side of the rope pulling. It wasn't it was no divas, no hierarchy. Everybody was trying for the same thing, which was good work. Which
right. And that's what, in general, I mean, we hear it all the time from people who are successful team wise too, is that you got to give yourself to a higher purpose than just your individual self on those operations to be successful. You have to think about the team and doing it right.
well, the thing is that we recognize there's an actor that I worked with on The Walking Dead, and one of his favorite sayings, I steal it from him, is we are who we are, how we're drawn. And so, as far as I've known you, and as far as you've known me, we actually haven't changed very much. It, we've evolved for sure, but fundamentally, we're
Yeah.
still the same hardworking guys that enjoy life, like to have fun, um, like
Well,
like to
there's
help.
a saying, right? There's a saying too, people don't necessarily change, they grow. So we'd
Good
have
point.
to have a
Good
lot
point.
of growth. Yeah.
Yeah, and what I like about when we get together, we realize we don't have it all, and we haven't conquered it all, and we don't sit around and think that we have, and we're still out chasing. And so that's why we're doing this, right? I
Still
mean,
hungry. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. Still
you're making inroads into a new junior college world. It's a brave new world that I'm excited to learn even more about. These players are amazing, and they're just they're our future major leaguers.
right. And I've been in this for a good year and a half now with junior college, and that's why I've stayed on. I feel that there's a great thing happening here, and I really want to be part of it, and want to promote it, and want to help the coaches, the players, all the programs that are kind of underserved to get the recognition that they deserve, and they do deserve. I mean, junior college baseball is loaded again this year. Great players, great coaches, teams trying to put together uh, team rankings is next to impossible sometimes with all the good teams. Putting together player rankings is hard to not leave anybody off. I mean, because the talent level is so good now, and it's really improved. And give credit to the coaches who's recruiting these kids and getting these guys in there and developing them till they get on to the next level.
Well, that's important. I think that what you do is huge, and what you're going to continue to do for the junior college, not just the players, but the coaches, because they're going to be looking to you for new players and to keep their stables strong. So that's great. So we really want everyone to understand the service that you are providing. So, hey, did you ever think about being an actor, Tad?
Yeah, I had a brief acting career back in, I think it was 1993, probably more before these players were even born. But, I was in a movie called Rookie of the Year.
I remember.
And I got to be one of the Cubs players, and I just went there and had fun, and
it was great.
Right? Yeah, I mean, that was Daniel Stern's first directing. His first directing, and
yeah, he's so
he
fun.
was a goofy pitching coach on there too, and Gary Busey, and
crazy.
all the.
And it's silly, right? Because outside of a guy like you, and I'm sure there were several pro players that were, filling in and trying to make up. But outside of that, when the non-athletes started throwing, it's not pretty, is it?
No, and that's why we had to be there to help the cause. But who would have known? I end up on the front cover of the DVD. So
great. That's so great.
So, like I said, but that was the beginning and the end of my acting career. So.
Well, maybe I'll find a place for you. But you're
maybe in a new movie
right now. You're entertaining right now because you have this podcast going. There's going to be a lot of people listening and knowing your thoughts and your voice. So that's
right.
That's
important. And we're hoping that you'll be able to join us as much as possible in between your gigs and being on set and off set, and
as much
any downtime that you have. We'd appreciate.
I'm a believer in the JUCO jam. I'm a jammer.
You're a jammer. Right, and we'll be jamming with quite a few coaches and players that get on here, and the special guests, and I look to jam with a lot of people.
Great. All right. Well, thanks so much for having me.
Hey, and we'll have you again. Look forward to you. That's Lou Temple. Baseball, passionate about baseball, was in professional baseball for over 10 years. Hollywood actor, great guy, and we're going to continue on this journey of baseball together. So we look forward to it. Lou, thanks for being on.
My pleasure. Thank you.
You've been listening to JUCO Jam. For all your junior college needs, go to dreambigathletics.com and make sure to tune in to next week's episode of JUCO Jam.